Hey guys, it's Hayden here making another video. Today I want to talk about something that's been requested quite a bit, and that's learning how to socialize after psychosis. Let's get into it. So before I get into the video, I just want to thank my subscribers, thank my supporters for supporting me, and if you want to get into contact with me, my contact information will be in the description below, my email, my Instagram, so if you want to reach out to me, if you want to work with me, then you can contact me through those um, platforms. So if you're watching this video, it's probably because either you are going through a psychosis, you've went through a psychosis, or you know somebody who's gone through one. And a common theme in psychosis recovery after psychosis is reintegrating back into society, and part of that is socializing. Socializing after psychosis can be quite challenging for many reasons. One, because of the sensitivity that is sort of induced after psychosis. A lot of people feel vulnerable after psychosis. There's also some insecurities about, will I be able to socialize? Am I going to be weird? There's a lot of relearning that's involved after psychosis because your whole paradigm has shifted and you kind of have to reintegrate socialization and reintegrate a lot of things, change the way your mind works in some ways. There's also the stigma, and there's also a lot of not a lot of resources out there for people to get help for psychosis because it is something that's stigmatized and it's not really super well understood. As someone who's been through psychosis, I want to give you guys some tools to be able to work through the resocialization aspect after psychosis, so you have the tools to be able to get where you want to be. And before I go into it, I just want to let you know that I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. So don't view this as medical or professional advice. If you want to seek medical or professional advice or you're worried about your mental health, speak to a professional about it. That being said, these are the tools that helped me to get back to socializing and back to reintegrating into society. The number one step when it comes to socializing and feeling comfortable socializing with people is to have a belief that you can do it. If you believe that you can't reintegrate and that you can't socialize, then you've already defeated yourself. So give yourself that liberty, give yourself that freedom, give yourself that possibility that that you can reintegrate, and just believe that it's possible. I'm not expecting you to believe that everything's going to be cured or everything's going to magically disappear. It's not, but at least give yourself that that window or that opportunity to make a change or to see that it is possible. So just that base belief that you can do it. So once you have that belief and you start moving towards like, okay, I want to figure out how I can integrate and socialize, one of the most important steps is creating a wellness plan and creating goals for yourself for socialization. So what this looks like is basically like a plan of where you'd like to be as far as like socializing, how you'd like to be able to interact. So having an idea of what your goal is when it comes to reintegration, because some people are fine with not really being able to socialize in big groups or not being able to socialize a lot. Some people that's just not their goal. So knowing what you would like to do is an important step, so you know what steps you need to take to get to where you want to go. And the other thing with setting goals is to make sure you're setting realistic goals. So it's good to have an idea of where you'd like to be, but then it's another thing of setting those realistic goals to get there. So for example, if you'd like to be able to socialize in large groups, maybe starting with just one or two people is going to be a good step towards that. You start with one or two people, then you maybe add 2 to 3 people, and you basically developed a controlled, gradual exposure to socialization. So that's sort of where you start. So that I can't tell you exactly what goals you're going to have because that depends on where you are in the current moment. Maybe you've already been talking to one or two people, so maybe you start finding some groups, some support groups that are sort of a controlled environment that you'll be able to interact with and get feedback from. Or maybe you go to, I don't know, like a sports club or something that you feel like you can bond with, something that you can connect with, that you have a common interest with, And so that's the focus. So it takes away the focus from the actual socialization aspect. So just finding some goals and some controlled environments that you can interact with, that you can decide to disengage from if it becomes too overwhelming. Another big thing to remember is that when you're going through this process, is to remember that you're in control. So you don't have to do anything that you don't feel comfortable doing. So if it feels like it's too much or you're feeling overwhelmed, you can choose to leave the situation. You don't have to have an excuse. You don't have to have a reason. You can just be like, hey, like, I need to go, or, sorry, I'm leaving now. You don't have to apologize for leaving. You have to take care of yourself. So remember that you don't have to be forced into a situation. You're in control, and you decide how your plan goes because it's your plan. So if something's too much for you, you can just leave, and that's okay. So as you're beginning this journey, just remember to start with the basics and also to keep track of your progress. So a lot of times it can be easy to get like 3 or 4 steps ahead of yourself, but just remember that gradually exposing yourself to socialization, it takes time and things aren't going to happen immediately. So it's important to set, like I said, realistic expectations and just start with basic things that you want to improve on. And yes, you will have things that you quote unquote mess up or things that you feel like you didn't do as well. But that's okay. That's part of the exploration. That's part of the learning process. Because after psychosis, there's a lot of relearning and reprogramming that has to happen. And so during that time, you're going to do things that don't necessarily make sense. You're going to do things that don't necessarily line up socially. And that's okay. That's part of the learning and integration process. Every time you realize you made a mistake, that's a time that basically you've learned something, and that's a time that in the future you probably won't do the same thing again because you've caught yourself and you've learned how to move forward from that. So noticing that you did something that you maybe didn't want to do or didn't want to say is a good thing because you actually have realized something and you've learned something and you're actually growing. So that's actually a win there, even though it may seem like a negative at first. And also make sure to not only focus on the positives, that's super important, but also think about how you can improve on. So you don't necessarily have to make a mistake in order to think about how to improve. You could notice how the conversation went, and maybe you notice how you could have asked the person a question or a follow-up question. And this is something I still do today when I'm interacting with people or when I feel like I maybe didn't interact or, ask the person questions that maybe would have opened a new line of conversation. So those are things that you can work on and notice, and then you can move towards, the next time you can basically pick up from there and be like, hey, okay, I remember last time I thought I could improve here. Maybe I'm going to try that in this new interaction. And then also a good thing to do is to ask for feedback. So at the end of a conversation, if you're with people that you trust and you're kind of insecure about how the conversation went, or you just want to get feedback to know how you could do better, ask for feedback. Be like, hey, like I'm trying to re-socialize. I've been through something that was difficult. And they probably know that already, hopefully, if you're asking them for feedback. And most people will be pretty willing to give you feedback on how the interaction went. That can be really validating to get that information back, and it gives you an understanding of how you could do better next time, possibly. So as you do this, gradually you'll kind of increase the difficulty or increase the challenge of socialization. So you might start with a small group, start with like a support group they're all kind of like working on the same thing with like psychosis or with mental health. So it's a controlled environment. Maybe you start venturing out into work, or you start venturing out into the clubs, or to common interest groups, or even work. So gradually you can kind of build it up, but again, take your time. Again, you're in control. Don't push yourself too hard. It took me a while to get to the place where I could actually go back to work. I started with school, which was a little bit more controlled environment because students are kind of not as overwhelming as work, where you actually have to serve somebody and people are asking you for a certain amount of interaction that's required for your job. Whereas school, you can just show up, go to class, and then go back home. So just knowing yourself and knowing how much you can take and how much you can handle is very important in the process, because if you do too much and you get burnt out, then you're going to be less likely to continue with the process. So make sure that you're pacing yourself, and if you do notice you overextend yourself, take a break, sort of recover, relax a little bit, and then go back to the place where you feel like is a challenge, but it's not too hard, where you can't make progress in. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just keep practicing, and over time you will gradually be able to socialize more easily. It does take time, it does take effort, but again, you choose how difficult you want to make the situation. You can start with just a very basic thing, and you can choose how fast you progress. It's all in your control. And like I said, it does take time, so be patient with yourself, be gentle with yourself, and remember, it's okay to mess up. Everyone messes up. It's just learning. It's just growing. And know that sometimes if some bad things happen when you socialize, it's not always about you. Sometimes it's about the other person, what they're going through, what their beliefs are. So don't take everything personally. And that's a whole different conversation. And just do the best you can. And with time, and you keep on practicing, there's no way you won't get at least a little bit better. So I guess that's all I have to share for today. Let me know if this video was helpful for you. You can let me know what you think in the comments below, and like it if you like it. If you'd like to see more content like this, you can subscribe. You can subscribe to my channel if I can talk. And speaking of socialization, it's funny. And as always, guys, make sure to seek your truth and to take time for yourself. And I will catch you in my future videos. Bye for now.